Yo Internet, what is happening? We're back at it. It's only Tuesday, so we didn't have to wait too long for a new video because I'm going to be putting this Coyote, mating it with my transmission, might be back there, and we also going to show you how I measured for the throwout bearing preload because I was having concerns with that. Otherwise, this probably would have been done Sunday. Just wanted to double check because I didn't want the throwout bearing overextending or not having enough preload and causing issues when it's all put together and you have to take the transmission out. So right now, like I said, I'm going to get that transmission bolted up, get the starter on, get the headers on, and then put the motor mount brackets on, and then plop it back on the subframe. All right, the XD clutch is on, and now I'm at the point where I got the throwout bearing in the transmission, ready to measure that from this face to the throwout bearing surface. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I'm going to also take the measurement from here, this surface, to the pressure plate fingers, so I can see how much preload is going to be on the throwout bearing. And where it has it, it's supposed to be about 1 inch. So I got to do this to see if I got to shim the throwout bearing in the first place. I'm really hoping I don't, but I don't think my odds are that great from other people's experiences. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to have to do this in 2 steps on this side anyway, because the fingers don't protrude past this face. So I'm going to take a measurement. I'll show you with a depth mic that I have. So go from here to here, and then measure from this point to the plate. That's important to get that plate to get an accurate measurement. That's about 1/8 of an inch. And then obviously just do a little math and see where you're at. So here's what I'm going to be using to measure the depth of the throwout bearing contact surface. Is a depth mic. Just add the extensions on here, and I'm going to use a straight edge across the bell housing face and see what we come up with. So there was one thing I almost forgot to do, is to bench bleed the throwout bearing or slave cylinder, and XD included some instructions, and I'll show you how I do that, is to submerge the line in some brake fluid and squeeze it, get the air out, and then release it. It'll suck brake fluid in there. Do that a few times, and then put a cap over the line so that you're that much further ahead in your bleeding process, because there's no bleeder screw on the line. And in order to bleed these cars clutch, it takes about 456,000 clutch pumps. And I feel like I was really lucky with the Fusion when I did this. I don't know if it was the aftermarket master cylinder for the clutch or what, but it took like 3 pumps of the pedal and the thing was bled. I didn't even bench bleed it, I don't even remember, but definitely gonna get ahead on that to bleed that so I don't have to, pump it 1 billion times. All right, so got a little thing of brake fluid here, and hope it's enough. That's all I had in hand. But so what I'm going to do is take this, dip it in there, squeeze all the bubbles out, release. See, it's taking the fluid. I'm going to do it again. Doesn't look like any air bubbles came out. A little bit there. I don't think I went down all the way the first time. Sick. So now I'm gonna let this release and put this little cap on there. Son of a building block. There. Now it should be nice and bled. Put it back in the mixer. Good to go. So after humming and hawing on what I was gonna do next, figured out it'd be a good time to do the AC adapter from none other than Power by the Hour. So these two little blocks will bolt up to where the AC compressor goes. I think I've heard wind that these bolts might be too long that go into the block. So there's your 3 bolts there. It's pretty obvious that the small block goes where there's 1 bolt. And we'll see how this fits up. All right, internet, it's time to get that car in the air, get this under it, get it bolted up. I gotta make some room over here for some work coming in tomorrow, but no rush, right? So I do want to touch on, now that I got some room under the hood, to show you, I got the 3-valve computer out, and this, I believe, yeah, this one here, obviously this, I don't know why I had to think about that, because the other ones are gone. This is your body harness, the PCM. This is where, and I actually calculated this out, the exact percentage of what the wiring, it's only 61% of the wiring is happening here. Probably won't go over that in this episode in detail, but that's something to keep in mind as you follow this build. So let's get that thing over there. So on second thought, I'm actually gonna put the battery harness and transmission harness in. I remember watching a couple of dudes doing this before, so you can kind of lay it out in the trans tunnel, and so everything, you don't have to like shove it down in there when the engine and transmission is in there. So I'm gonna do that first before anything else. Say engine harness slash trans. I meant battery slash trans. Yeah. Well, after some hemming and hawing, I got the battery tray and kind of seen where the harnesses kind of go. I'm not sure if there's holes that are not in the earlier chassis to clip things in, except for the harness there is clipped in, it's clipped into the battery tray, and it's clipped in right there. I know where everything goes to stuff that's not in here yet, but as far as like it looping back for the trans harness and stuff, not sure exactly which ones go where yet, or if I have to secure them a different way. So I'm just gonna throw that in there, and maybe as it's dropping down, kind of see where things go. Saw this trick I came up with on the fly to put that thing right in the legs of the cherry picker, because this lift doesn't go high enough. That's the size it goes, but probably gonna use this method in the future if this works. I'm fairly certain it's gonna work really good. Lego girl.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm nuts. All right, so got all the subframe bolts in, but I still got to do the transmount bolts. You can see it's just hanging there a little bit, but it all fits in there like it should. Boarding from under. Shifter and cross member are in. Steering shaft is in. I had to persuade that tube just a little bit with the air hammer. Not the prettiest, but got the job done and the steering shaft clears. So now I'm trying to figure out what my next plan of attack is as far as mechanicals. I have a suspension's hooked back up. And I think I'm going to lay down the transmission harness and engine harness. So I want to be able to take the intake on and off when that stuff is in there, so in the future if I have to take the intake manifold off, I don't have to juicy food around with the engine harness. Oh yeah, the fun part is coming. Definitely right about the power by the hour bracket. The bolts they give you are actually way too short, and the stock ones holding it, that we're holding it to the 4.6, are far too long. So that's about as far as the stock one clamps it to. So I'm gonna have to just take a measurement of that length, a measurement of the block, and then cut the bolts accordingly. Well, I think that's where I'm going to cut this episode off at. I'm just going to dial in the all the boring stuff anyway, but next time we're going to dive into the wires, I promise you. So you must stick around, because that's going to be the meat and potatoes of this swap, and no one else has really shared exactly how they do this, so stay tuned. We'll see you next time.